Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today we're going to be looking at the Trump tweets of June 27th, 2018. I have master cryptologist, decoder, Thomas Paine. Of course, you know us as the Betsy and Thomas Show. Now, the first one, and if you want to follow along, please click in the description box, click on the link, and you will find all these tweets, pictures, and some other special material. We always leave little surprises in there for you. In recent days, we have heard shameless attacks on our courageous law enforcement officers. Extremist Democrat politicians have called for the complete elimination of ICE. Left-wing activists are trying to block ICE officers from doing their jobs and publicly posting their, goes into another tweet, home addresses, putting these selfless public servants in harm's way. These radical protesters want anarchy, but the only response they will find from our government is law and order.
This is big one, big one. By the way, it's always an honor to try to decode what a stable genius is giving us as his messages, instead of the garbage that I'm hearing on other channels where they're saying that Trey Gowdy is going to be the next Supreme Court justice. Things like that, where you just have to laugh. Just listen to President Trump. What is he saying here? Now, it is true that it takes a genius to know a genius, and perhaps that's the reason people can't understand him, because they don't get his genius. What he's saying here, every sentence says crime, 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 felony, 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 felony. Now, he used to call them, let's look at the first sentence. They're doing what? Shameless attacks. Attacking a law enforcement officer, that is a felony. Each and every person who did that. And I'm going to get to something really big here, but the next sentence says extremist Democrats. He often adds extremist open border Democrats, which basically will soon probably be considered a domestic terrorist group, just like Antifa and Black Lives Matter. So these extremist Democratic politicians, and we see what they've been doing in these days, they've called even for cabinet members to be assaulted, and they've called for blood on the street, and so other things. So in the second sentence, extremist Democrats, politicians have called for the complete elimination of ICE. That's like calling for the elimination of our military. You couldn't be stupider than to say you don't want anyone to defend our borders. That is just, that is unbelievable that any politician, Kamala Harris, is that the way you say her name?
Who knows? I hope she's a has-been.
Oh, she's not a has-been. She's going to be in the same rat lines as Pelosi and Feinstein. And no, it's going to be terrible. They're going to try to put her up for president.
Well, what I see here is the takedown of the Democrat Party. We're just finally just going to take them down because of who they've become. They are anti-Americans. And
third sentence, you're right. And third sentence, left-wing activists trying to block ICE officers. That's against the law. What did they do? They sent in SWAT teams. And boy, did those snowflakes melt. Matter of fact, they got really upset when they threw some tear gas. It wasn't even tear gas, it was pepper gas in front of them. They all freaked out. Well, what did they expect to have happen?
Well, nothing happened under the Obama reign, so they don't expect anything to happen.
Obama actually fed those non-government organizations money that he stole from different agencies through all kinds of schemes and machinations to make sure that those people out on the street were being given money to be there. Many of those people are paid, and that's what we found out. And if Antifa shows up with a mask, they go to jail. If Black Lives Matter shows up with a club, they go to jail. They are considered domestic terrorists at this point. So what is he saying? Anarchy. That's where we're headed. But first, blocking an ICE officer, that's a crime. Giving out home addresses, this is the big key. We just got through hearing the big fat friggin' lie that Julian Assange released the names and addresses of ICE agents through WikiLeaks. Incorrect. That is a lie. That was people on the inside, black hats, taking those names, which they had access to, and releasing them under WikiLeaks. Julian Assange isn't releasing anything. And this group is basically spinning around, and they were used in this release. There's also, at the same time, the exact same time, 24 hours later, they said Julian Assange was free and on American soil. See what they did? They created the myth that Julian was free so that he could give out the ICE information, which is a federal crime. This is like giving out DEA officers' names. This is like giving out the name of a CIA operative.
But Thomas, that's exactly what Hillary Clinton did as she walked around the world with her open server. I mean, what was Benghazi about? It was about giving names of Americans trying to protect Americans.
And in like fashion, Betsy, when she used her BlackBerry overseas and literally was communicating with the president and others and talking about operations that were going on currently, she was endangering the lives of all those people. And that is it's a felony. It's worse than a felony. The agreements you get when you sign for your secret or top secret agreements are amazing penalties. Amazing. I won't even go into them, but it's worse than even a felony. You don't even have any rights once you violate those laws, and she did. So what is Trump saying? Crime, 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 crime. All of you are criminals, you left-wing Democrat politicians included. But you anarchists, because he finally uses the word anarchy, because that's what it was when Antifa and Black Lives Matter were out on the street. But remember what happened there. When Antifa wore masks, it became illegal. And when they carried a stick, it showed their intent to harm. And so they are now domestic terrorists. Why are they even allowed to assemble? When we already see that the few times that they've assembled since that happened was violence. And they actually got beat up, and they got beat up back. And so conservatives are fighting back Antifa. So you come ready to fight, you're going to find others ready to fight you. So people are saying there's a civil war. 45% of Americans in the poll recently said that we are ready for a civil war. Because why? Conservatives are going to finally fight back against the attacks of the Democrats, the attack of the left wing, these anarchists who want to break the law on all issues, borders, fighting ICE agents, sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, breaking the law. And what does Trump say? Law and order. That's all he has to say. Law and order, and they all crumble. They all are criminals. They all need to be prosecuted. The only other thing he could say is zero tolerance. And as we know now, he's backed off for a minute because they have 2,000 of these families that they can't deal with. And so he's backed off with separating children with, and not calling that zero tolerance, but with these issues, it must be zero tolerance because these ICE agents and their families are being put in danger.
Well, not just that. We're also Trump's administration, that they're being stalked.
Oh, the cabinet's members. That is. I don't know, except maybe a long time ago when it was still the Wild Wild West. Still had its remnants in Washington D.C. There might have been things like that.
I mean, Maxine Waters has called out for people to do that.
They are promoting violence.
She's a congressperson.
She is promoting violence. They've already called for her to be censored. They've called for her to be fired. She needs to just step down because she doesn't even know what she's saying. She seems as if she is senile.
Well, I like that
aggressively senile.
I like to see the president using the word anarchy because that is a term that has consequences.
Jail is the consequences, and it stops the Soros nation. Soros just took over the European Union. He doesn't have Britain quite yet, but he's trying to take over this nation. Wake up. We are in a purple revolution. They're trying to overthrow Trump. This is simply NGOs. $18 billion of stolen money from George Soros went into those same non-governmental organizations that are paying those people to go out and to be on the street and act like they are free and independent and that they are, in fact, simply expressing free speech. There is no more free speech. Why are they allowed to do that when others, there's no free speech allowed? They're not even allowed to speak about free speech on campuses now. So how is it that the people who wish to resist law enforcement officers, resist our laws, follow extremist, open border Democrat politicians to commit crimes? How is it that these people, you don't know that they've got money in their pocket from George Soros?
Well, that's what a mercenary
NGOs?
is. They're Soros's mercenaries here on American soil. And
Precisely.
We need to treat them as what they are. They're the domestic enemy. And it doesn't just stop on the street. But let's go on to the next tweet. Lover FBI agent Peter Strzok was given poor marks on yesterday's closed-door testimony and, according to most reports, refused to answer many questions. There was no collusion, and the witch hunt, headed by 13 angry Democrats and others who were totally conflicted, is rigged.
Two messages there. Make sure to break those out. He jumps to his normal statement. There was no collusion in the witch hunt. headed by 39. Okay, he keeps having to point that out because Peter Strzok was on that group. Okay? Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Bruce Orr, angry Democrats who were on the special counsel. These are utter criminals. And I want to just make this perfectly clear. Every time you hear them say that there was the Crossfire Hurricane investigation, stop short and say no. Operation. There was no investigation. They tried to create a crime. They weren't looking for a crime. They created the crime. It was an operation, which means it was a lie. It was subterfuge. So, Crossfire Hurricane, Peter Strzok, and then McCabe and Comey, and all the way to Obama and the whole group of them, that was an operation. That was not an investigation. And therefore, the people who sent in were spies. They weren't informants. This was an operation. You cannot have an investigation in the Federal Bureau of Investigation Counterintelligence Department. No. They conduct black operations inside of America, not outside, but this was also outside of America. So this involved the CIA, NSA, involved all the top intelligence agencies. So what he's saying is Peter Strzok is part of this stupid special counsel, which they call looking into collusion. Can be no collusion. Comey was his subordinate. Cannot be collusion. And it was the recommendation of Rod Rosenstein and Sessions themselves that got Comey fired, even though Trump thought he should have been fired long before. So Peter Strzok went before, as Jim Jordan said, a necessary closed-door session to see if he would answer anything. Here's what totally upsets me. I'm not going to scream about it, but someone should. Why did he have FBI lawyers telling him not to speak? Why is he still employed? He had his private lawyer and FBI lawyers. Think of that. The FBI was representing this criminal.
I know the answer to that, and so does everybody in the audience, because the FBI is protecting its butts. Like I always say, this FBI is not a law. It's not a law agency. They can't even find crimes, huge crimes that are going on under their roof.
They let, what's a bad name for Peter Strzok? We could call him Peter Strookout. Say that these were private messages between he and his lover. No, first off, they were both married. It would violated their security agreements. That's a felony. They both go to jail, period. They don't even get a defense for that. Secondly, they were on government phones, on government lines that we, the people, paid for, and he thinks he got to deliver sex messages, and he did. They removed all personal references from all text messages, 55,000 of them. They spent all that time removing all of his personal sex messages to her.
Well, see, I'm going to push back on that. I have not seen any text that told me that they were lovers, and this is not the first time that Trump has called Strzok using the adjective lover. I think it might be pointing to us that perhaps they weren't lovers. And until I see them myself, you're shaking your head, but I want to see all of these texts because I think they were planning his assassination.
Oh, they absolutely were. His demise, one way or the other, and assassination is the last method, if that was what it's about. But as I said, when Stephen Boyd wrote back from the Department of Justice to the Congress and said, we're only going to give you 238 or 283 text messages, and they have been completely stripped of all personal remarks, all attachments, all references to SCS members, Senior Executive Service members, and all references of superiors who may have needed to be redacted, and some of those names were redacted. But you see, there's no attachments, and there are no personal sex messages, and that's my joke. You'll never see the sex texts because they are all removed, and the remarks that were in them. So any single text that said, hey, baby, meet me at 3 o'clock behind Comey's desk because I want to show you something in the trash can, well, they're going to remove also that they said, the meeting with Contreras is on tonight at 3 p.m. And don't forget to bring the papers for him to sign that we're going to blackmail him with.
I mean, we saw what Agent 1 and Agent 5 are texting to each other. Can you imagine what these two are doing?
This is what the top cover-up agent fixer in Washington, Michael Horowitz, allowed out. Imagine what he did not allow out. And that's what Congress is so upset about. That's what Devin Nunes is so upset about. And so Peter Lover, and he's making a joke. Where are the sex texts? We want Comey Kilpatrick's sex texts. Yeah. They were entertainment. Everyone knew at that point.
Are you kidding? They'll be the greatest hits in the internet. You'll get so many hits if you could just post his sex texts.
To think that the NSA didn't have every one of these communications and still has these communications available to
Maybe
them
the Russians have
is
them.
Naive.
Can the Russians give it to us?
Oh, the Russians probably got it through the Allman brothers, through Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the gang. But really, they have all of this. All they have to do is ask the NSA. Plus, their systems are all backed up. So if they were on secure systems, they were all backed up to begin with. There is no such thing as missing text messages between the deputy chief director of the FBI counterintelligence and his lawyers and his group. No such thing. Those are government documents.
And is the NSA supposed to be working with Trump? Do they work under him?
Yes.
Okay, so he could ask them, give me those texts.
Yes.
Okay, so there should be no issue here.
No issue if there was honesty in any of these groups, but he knows he can't trust any of them. He doesn't get his intelligence from them. They're not really stopping any crime that I can see. They fight against him, and they're still fighting for their lives because their conspiracy has come to light. And now all they're doing is fighting for their life. So Peter Strzok had FBI assigned lawyers to tell him not to speak.
Because they're protecting their butts.
In a closed-door session with people who have top-secret security clearances higher than they have in some cases, and they won't tell them the truth?
Because they've been caught.
They are compromised 100%, and those FBI lawyers, whoever they were, I'd love to get their names, they would have been part of Comey's bunk buddies.
Well, whoever gave the home addresses to the ICE officers, maybe they could get you those addresses.
That would be the same people.
Yeah. Okay, next text. Russia continues to say they had nothing to do with meddling in our election. Where is the DNC server? And why didn't shady James Comey and the now disgraced FBI agents take and closely examine it? Why isn't Hillary, Russia, being looked at? So many questions, so much corruption.
He didn't even know where to turn. There's so much corruption. But he does call it out. Shady James Comey. Everything he says is a lie, or obfuscation, or confabulation, or conflation, or nonsense, because that's what he was put there to do. That's why he stepped down from a $10 million a year job at HSBC, where he went to, corrupt, get them a deal on their corruption, where Robert Mueller had been before. They're bunk buddies. They're best friends forever. They follow each other. They were together on the Ashcroft nonsense. They were together on creating FBI obscuring the evidence of any case they want. That comes back to Comey and Mueller, and that's why there's no evidence in the 9/11 investigation. That's why there's no evidence in McVeigh. That's why there's no evidence in Waco. That's why there's no evidence. What did they do about separating the children? They didn't separate the children at Waco. They just attacked them and killed them and burnt them. That's what Mueller did. And then they want to say that President Trump is bad. And then the disgraced FBI agents, who he didn't say fired because they're not fired. But later here, he's going to say the word fired, and you'll think he's made a mistake. No, he's telling everyone, why aren't they fired? Why are FBI lawyers defending Peter Strzok? That is absurd. So let's go on, because the corruption... What he's saying is, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? I'm going to go meet with Putin in a summit, and Putin keeps saying to me, Mr. President, show me one speck of evidence that we meddled in the election. One tiny, itsy, teensy, weeny, yellow polka dot bikinis. Please, give me some evidence. Isn't that what he said every time he's met with the president? The president says, has anybody got any evidence? Anybody, FBI, CIA, NSA, anybody, no evidence. Sorry, I don't have any evidence, but they keep telling me that you meddled in the election. So now he wants the DNC server. He wants to know where it went. He wants to know if it was bleached like Hillary's. He wants to know if there's a backup copy in Christopher Wray's office, like there's a backup copy of all the other stuff that's missing. And he wants to basically say there's so much corruption that if you really looked into it, you'd start looking into Hillary's corruption. And oh, Lord, that's endless. We don't want to go there. So many questions, and nothing is being answered. And Jeff Sessions hasn't created any special counsel. And he hasn't gone after the only real Russian involved in the DNC, Dmitry Alperovitch. He hasn't gone after Podesta or Hillary over the DNC corruption. He hasn't created a special counsel. Sessions has done nothing.
How about Donna Brazile and Wasserman Schultz?
Exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
What about all of them?
Right.
They've all admitted their crimes.
Right.
Jonathan Weiner, they've all jumped ship and admitted their crimes, screaming out loud as they jumped off the ship, and no one heard anything in the Department of Justice. They're too busy defending their own crimes.
But see, Thomas, and then we'll move on to the next tweet. You have to remember, these people have now been isolated. They're not going to be able to hold future positions in the government because every day we out more and more of them. They have lost their reputations, and they will all eventually die. I mean, like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, but the woman is not in good condition, and she's in her 80s. Folks, liberals, you know, she's not going to live forever, and Trump will probably still be the president, and we'll get another seat.
And you know what would be really cool?
What?
If she passed away soon, God bless her, she went straight to her just desserts, and that the rest of the liberals who didn't have a heart attack from Kennedy stepping down would have a heart attack from Ginsburg stepping down. And then they wouldn't know what to do. They'd probably never vote again, just like they didn't vote in the New York elections in the primaries, and they let socialists take over for their most seated Democrat in the entire Congress.
So people need to know that even though we get on here and we decode the tweets to tell you kind of what at the surface, what's going on, folks, we've already won. It's just a matter now of continuing to run them out of D.C. Okay. Amy Kremer, Women for Trump, was so great on Fox and Friends, brave and very smart. Thank you, Amy.
You can't lose because they say he's a sexist. Nope. He's received there's never been a single case brought against him except Stormy, who they now want to run for president, I understand, because, you know, she's a real personality. And she's such a good liar, she'd make a great politician. So sexist, no. Misogynist, no. He's received awards and he's raised women to the highest positions in his company. A xenophobe, no. He only goes after the terrorists. He's not saying all Muslims, but he is saying that America is a Christian nation. Oh, sorry to have to speak the truth. Is he a racist? No. Look at his record. There have been no cases brought against him. The only cases ever brought against him were the 20-some cases brought by Eric Schneiderman, who's now been completely disgraced, found out to be a monster of monsters, and he volunteered because he was so anxious, foaming at the mouth to help the special counsel on Mueller, Robert Mueller, to go after Trump, that he overstepped his boundary and he fell from the grace of the evil tower that he was at. So, women for Trump? You better believe it. Mexicans for Trump? Oh, yeah, there's a whole new group. DACA for Trump? Yeah.
Hey, Democrats for Trump.
Democrats for Trump. It's all over.
What we're talking about really is Americans getting behind Trump and driving out this anarchic group that is within the extremist Democrat Party. Okay, next tweet. Just watched Shark Greg Norman on Fox and Friends said, quote, "President is doing a great job all over the world. People want to come back to the U.S., close quote. Thank you, Greg, and you're looking and doing great."
Everyone except Harley Davidson, we'll talk about them in a minute. The rest of the world, they are changing their opinion about Trump, and now they're using everything he does in MAGA and nationalism and all these great things that he's bringing back, which is diversity counts. We shouldn't be amalgamated into nothingness. We should all remember our roots. And the fact that he's doing this for the whole world, he is so popular that we just saw you post a beautiful chart that showed that they did a survey on who the worst presidents in modern history have been. And the number one worst president, far outstretching any of them, was Barry Soetoro.
And we still have time to take that poll again in another 5 years. It'll probably be even higher.
He'll be in jail. That's the reason I call him Barry Soetoro, because he's not really the president. He probably will be impeached by then.
We call him Big Mike and Barry around here. Mm-hmm. Okay, Peter Strzok worked as the leader of the rigged witch hunt for a long period of time. He got it started and was only fired because the gig was up. But remember, he took his orders from Comey and McCabe, and they took their orders from you-know-who, Mueller, Comey, best friends.
Okay. Do you think we should call QAnon and ask him what he means? He says, you-know-who? I don't know if we'll be able to figure out that that's Obama. We better call Q and ask him. He'll probably say it's Trey Gowdy. I love that Q now says he's one person. Q is a collective before. Now it's just one person. It cracks me up. So what I'm suggesting is we know the answer. Do you know the answer, folks? That would be Obama. Barry Soetoro, as we like to call him. So Peter struck out. Okay? He was the leader. He was the leader of Crossfire Hurricane, an operation to take down a candidate and then a president, and now he becomes a leader of the special counsel who is the key witness and Contreras' best friend, which he's in his text it says was also completely compromised, but they didn't step down until after they were the witnesses, compromised the whole thing, and the case still goes on.
But he took his orders. These people don't operate without taking their orders from someone. Now, I posted an article a while back. There seems to be some history, some way back when, of Peter Strzok and Barry Soetoro.
Oh, yes. Strzok is like he's a bumbling 007, the fumbling, bumbling idiots in the FBI. He is one of them. And yes, Barry has left a trail so wide that he had to seal his own records before the election, and has now sealed his everything during the election, and then in his entire administration. It's been sealed, folks. Try to FOIA anything from Barry Soetoro. It is all sealed. So struck out is the leader, and he is on the rigged witch hunt. Why does he now call it rigged? Because the second that Strzok and his girlfriend and the guy who is connected to Fusion GPS, Bruce Orr, and the others, that would be Kevin Klein-Smith and Sally Moyer and who knows who all else, we don't know. They're now asking, please give us a list of everybody you had on the special counsel.
It's hard to keep track with all these people.
It will be every criminal we've been talking about. We could start naming them as a guess, and they would probably come true. So the point is, the whole thing was rigged from the beginning, and their leader, Peter Strzok, was more compromised than maybe any FBI agent in U.S. history. And he says he got it started and was only fired because the gig was up. He didn't even get fired, Mr. President, and you know and I know that you did that on purpose. You're telling sleepy Jeff Sessions, who's in Rip Van Winkle world, wake up, at least fire them, at least show you have some testicles, because right now you show that Rod Rosenstein is running everything and you're an idiot. It doesn't take firing him Strzok out for what you now know. And by the way, you have all the unredacted copies, Jeff Sessions. You should see all the truth, and you should be reading them every night and finding the truth out.
But he's part of the swamp. He is a senior executive service, and he's protecting his troops.
So when he couldn't hide it anymore, and he couldn't even let General Kelly come over and beat up on the DOJ and say, release the documents. They've now released some of them, the wrong documents. Trump says fired. Why? Strzok was removed, and his security clearance was struck. From Strzok. The struck out. But he is not fired yet. But the gig was up. The gig is up because now, as we said, the second person in charge of the FBI counterintelligence will go down. And everybody knows he's going to go down. The only one who doesn't know it was him. He should have listened to us. We told him he was going to go down and how he was going to go down long time ago. Peter Strzok. We said it would be, we didn't know his name. We said the second person in charge. Bill Priestap's the first. Bill Priestap acts like he doesn't know any of this stuff happened. He should go down. And Michael Steinbeck, the guy who was there before him, and Joe Gallicchione, all of them in the FBI counterintelligence department, and all their lawyers are all guilty.
I mean, you could see James Baker was one of the first ones out.
Oh, he was Comey's. He was the head counsel for the whole FBI. He was Comey's bunk buddy, and he names him and says, I'm sitting around with my buddies and we're talking about Trump and I'm telling them what I just found out in a top secret security meeting with Trump, which has executive privilege, and I can't even say it out loud, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you, and then once we talk about it, you're going to help me decide what I'm going to write up in my notes. He says this. Comey says this. And he says it over and over again in his testimony. It's like, what did you say? In other words, leaking to you is so common that you leak to everyone in your senior staff about everything going on with Trump and all of your crazy accusations, when in fact you were running a counterintelligence operation against him with the dossier. You personally were, with James Clapper, with John Brennan. And Admiral Rogers jumped in and said, I'm getting out of this. I'm going to do an audit on what you guys are doing. It's illegal, and that gives him his out, and that's the reason he's safe. But the rest of them, they're not safe. They're going down. And Peter Strzok is their leader.
Okay.
And it was rigged. And Comey and Mueller, as I just told you, HSBC, the Ashcroft incident, they go back to Rose lawyer firm when they started with Hillary and Bill Clinton stealing patents. Comey and Mueller could not be better friends. They have to in public act like they're not. They follow in each other's shoes. Mueller taught Comey everything he knows. It's just that Comey's stupid, and he didn't learn it. And Mueller got away with so much criminality that he even stopped covering his own trail. And we're going to get him because that trail is huge.
Good. I just wanted you to focus on that best friends thing because we have a lot of questions about when their friendship actually started. I don't know that we have the answer because we can't find anything on open source, but we know it's at least deep. The next tweet. When is Bob Mueller going to list his conflicts of interest? Why has it taken so long? Will they be listed at the top of his $22 million report? And what about the 13 angry Democrats? Will they list their conflicts with Crooked H? How many people will be sent to jail?
And persecuted.
Well, did you want me to read the other tweet?
On old. Yeah, go on.
And persecuted on old and or totally unrelated charges. There was no collusion and there was no obstruction of the no collusion. And what is going on in the FBI and DOJ with Crooked Hillary, the DNC, and all the lies? A disgraceful situation.
Let's go backwards. Why aren't they focusing on the real thing? Crooked Hillary, the DNC, and the lies. All those can be caught. All those we have so much evidence on. The mountains of evidence. You have to have all 35,000 members of the FBI working on Hillary's side to be able to keep up with hiding the mountains of evidence that we have that can convict Hillary today. Anyone could convict Hillary. Anyone who could get to an internet could convict Hillary Clinton. The emolument clause alone, and the fact that she even broke the stupid agreement she wrote with Obama that she was going to tell Obama that she was getting this money and therefore it would be okay. But then what did she do? Received hundreds of millions of money she never even told Obama about. So she even violated her own Bill Clinton lawyerese nonsense insanity. But let's go back. Bob Mueller's conflicts of interest, that's with Comey. He gave Comey probably immunization, complete immunity from the get-go because he set him up from the beginning. Before Comey ever leaked what he leaked, he knew that Mueller was probably counseling him the entire way. Matter of fact, it is impossible to imagine that Robert Mueller was not counseling Comey the entire way that he bungled the scandalous matter of the non-named Hillary Clinton and the email scandal. I mean, it is so bungled that now they can't help but go down as long as anyone with eyes or ears does the investigation. But we'll see if that starts. So, 22 million, well, that's what he must have got a bill recently. He must have asked. And remember last time, that didn't include all the staff at the DOJ, 117,000 of them probably, and all 35,000 of the FBI, and probably all the CIA, except for a handful of them, are working on this case because so many of them are involved. How many of them communicated in State Department too? How many at the State Department who started this dossier nonsense communicated with Hillary on a phone that was on a non-secure line? Criminal felony. There is no excuse. There's no defense. Bye-bye. I hope you like your time at Fort Dix because that's where they put you in the military when you do that. Okay, so the 13 angry Democrats, we now are finding out who all those people are. Oh, my Lord. All of them are so horrifyingly, it's disturbing how bad it is. Let's look at Hillary's 84 million she stole from the Democratic National Committee, we now know. There's two, now multiple lawsuits with the Federal Elections Commission. The first one started in Maine. Now each state is doing one because why? Bernie never stood up and got his money and didn't even tell us his money was stolen. And now Bernie wants to run again as a Democrat. No, it was completely corrupt. And so from the beginning, Mueller had a conflict of interest because he works at WilmerHale, and all the lawyers, half the lawyers, or 7 of them or so, came from WilmerHale. That's where Manafort has his lawyer. Okay, that's a conflict of interest. So they say, oh, well, we build firewalls. That is nonsense. There's no such thing as any kind of precedent or any law that says a firewall means anything. There's complete nonsense, absolute collusion. That's where the collusion was, and that's why he always goes back to the word collusion. And what does he say up here? And I'll just point that out. Collusion, and there was no obstruction of the no collusion. Now, get that, folks. As we have said from the beginning, but we screamed it when we started, there cannot be collusion. That is his subordinate. He can fire him anytime he wants. There's no such thing as collusion with you firing a subordinate. What kind of stupidity is that? And then obstruction of justice because somehow you fired someone? That's stupid. And that's what it's come back to. At first it started with Russian collusion. Oh no, then it started with the collusion with Comey. And then it started with obstruction of justice with Comey. And now it's obstruction of justice with whoever. All lies. And who went to jail? We told you from the beginning who was going to go to jail. We told you they're going to get Paul Manafort. And why? They wanted Paul Manafort for decades. He's the president maker, Republican president maker, and the Democrats hate him. They wanted to hang him from the gallows for decades. They've been going after him since 2004. Then he went to Ukraine and stood against the State Department's $4.7 billion investment in getting neo-fascists to take over the Ukraine through 2 George Soros and CIA color revolutions, the Orange Revolution and the Maiden Revolution, the Euro-Maiden Revolution. Victoria Nuland was angry and said publicly that she hated Paul Manafort. And then she worked with Alexander Chalupa to come up with the first charges against Paul Manafort, which was that he took $27 million in undercover money from the World Bank. That was Victoria Nuland who made that accusation. So don't forget, these old charges go all the way back to 5 presidents ago. And these charges are complete nonsense. Hacking? There was no hacking. Meddling? There was no meddling. The hacking was by Dmitry Alperovitch. The meddling was by the Global Engagement Center and the British Strategic Communications Logistics
Laboratories.
The extortion, there was extortion all over the place. You should have seen what Hillary was doing with Google and Facebook. That's extortion. The dossier, that was created and paid for by the Democratic National Committee. Nothing happened. That's Hillary's things. That's her corruption. That's the DNC corruption. Those are the lies he's talking about. They weaponized the DOJ for crooked Hillary. They took Soros money, and unfortunately Seth Rich died. And though they have a video of the killing and they know who the killer is, no one has been brought to justice. As a matter of fact, there was really no investigation. That is a disgrace also. So that's what he's talking about in all of these different references. And I'm so glad that sometimes he obscures some of them so that we feel, we had to do some, really good thinking and research to be able to solve some of these. And that's what the next one is.
Okay, I know. You can't wait to get to the next one. And I haven't done any research on this, so I'm going to sit here as a novice and listen to your explanation. Drum roll, please. I am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for meetings. Soon to leave for a big groundbreaking for Foxconn, which is building a great new electronics plant in Wisconsin. 15,000 jobs. So great.
Seems like just a nice little tweet. You'd go right over that, wouldn't you?
Well, I would think about Harley Davidson.
Exactly.
And I would see with Foxconn, I would think about the manufacturing in China. So I would say this is very interesting.
$10 billion plant with the 4th largest tech company in the world, the only one who ever convinced the Chinese to come here and build with our tech, where they don't get to steal the IP, the intellectual property. This is the issue. That $10 billion plant is nothing compared to the IP that will not be stolen from us by that very company. Do you get what's happening here? This is a $10 billion, 15,000 people. And so bye-bye, Harley Davidson. You're the past. You want to go with Thailand? You must be out of your mind to begin with. But later, China's going to eat you up alive, so don't worry. You're going to be Chinese before it's over. And what are we going to get? We're going to get the Chinese for the first time ever, instead of saying, we'll do anything for you, but you must come to China where we can steal the IP. And we say to them, you will use the chips we give you. And that's what's going to happen next. People don't understand. Now, that's on the surface. Most people get that. Here's what's really happening.
Ooh, you're going to take us really deep now?
The dadgum communist totalitarian, led by a maniac, mainland Chinese are in a war with the Taiwan. Taiwan, the national Chinese, and they're just about winning. And has anyone even noticed that the head of their parliament, their prime minister, is begging for help from the West, saying China's going to take us over. The coup is almost complete. It's almost done. Why do you think Trump is bringing that company, that Taiwanese company, to America right now? Just did in China again. Just took their fourth largest producer and put it on American soil with $4.5 billion tax incentives. So their building cost them half, and they don't pay taxes for 5 years. And we just made, this is the biggest thing since Admiral Perry entered the East. This is the hugest victory. They want to talk about, tariffs are nothing. We're going to build Chinese products in America. We're going to control their IP. Do you get what's happening? When they try to make their equipment in America top notch, it's in our factories. It's ours. So industrial espionage, the table got turned on industrial espionage. Sorry, Eric Schmidt, who just banked everything on China. Eric just banked everything on China.
Oh, yes,
Eric, you should listen to us. I know you don't get us in China, but if you got the app, you'd get us in China, and then we'd tell you you made a huge mistake in North Korea. Remember when we told you that you were there for the exclusive deal on their only fiber optic line into all of North Korea? One, folks. That's embarrassing. One. He went there and got them satellite connection. Oops, no need anymore. Sorry, Eric, that deal just went down the toilet. Oh, then you snuck across to China. You'd think we didn't know who you were there with? James Breyer? You think we didn't know what you were doing there? Putting the facial recognition on every single camera in China so that they can create the most totalitarian Eric Schmidt AI robotic control of the world, that what we call Richard C. Walker's Internet of Things patent is now being completely applied in the most aggressive remote control of a nation in history. Thank you, Eric Schmidt. That's what he's been doing for the last few months. Now where did he go? I love this.
Can we revoke his citizenship?
He is so evil. He is like George Soros, but they both play off each other. They won't talk to each other, just like he thinks that Eric Schmidt thinks he's above Bill Gates because he knows Bill Gates is an idiot. He knows that he was above Jobs because Jobs was an idiot. They don't do this stuff. They don't write code. Zuckerberg doesn't write code. Peter Thiel doesn't write code. John McAfee doesn't write code. By the way, is he dead now? One of them, that was, people are dying and being poisoned left and right who were a part of these cardboard cutout kings of Silicon Valley. And what we're really seeing, we're seeing Trump win the day. Obama brought all the Silicon Valley idiots into the White House believing they were smart.
Oh, that's right. He would have, because he's not so smart either.
He forced them to give $2 billion to his library, which is a scam. Right. It's a foundation, 3 foundations rolled into one, which is trying to scam Chicago out of their best piece of property and make a Obama Disney World. It's absolutely disgusting. No, that is to tie it up in court for years so you don't get to look at the documents from his administration, folks. We predicted this before it happened. Go back, listen to the tapes. We're always giving you what's about to happen. Why? Because the plans of idiots are so easy to see through. So when Obama brought in those idiots from Silicon Valley, they said $2 billion. They gave
and when you say brought in, that was at the U.S. Digital Service.
No, that's Eric Schmidt. Okay. He brought in the Eric Schmidt U.S. Digital Service, and they tried to control the election through the template to win for Hillary, and they did control it previously for Obama twice because of the algorithms that Eric Schmidt wrote. Because he said, it's my job. I want this person to be in the White House. So I'm going to use this weaponized system that the military allowed me to buy into and become a billionaire. Because Eric Schmidt's a very smart guy. He's not fake. He's one of the only ones that isn't fake. He's the one to watch out for. He's building the robot army. He's building the AIs. He's taken, DeepMind the next step, and he took it to China.
Well, he may be smart, but he's not politically savvy.
He's an idiot. He went for China. We told him and Kissinger and Steve Bannon and all of them, China is a lie. If you believe anything China tells you, you are so stupid. So what did Trump do? Yeah. What did he say to them? $850 billion in deals. How many of those came through? None. When he was there, he did temporary $850 billion in deals.
What do you mean when he was there?
when his people went to China.
Okay, not Trump,
No.
his people.
Yes, but when he has met with Xi, he has conducted $850 billion in deals with China. Almost none of them have panned out, not even Lenovo. And with ZTE, that was the first crumb he was giving them to say, oh, or have I softened you up enough and now the Congress wants to get in on the deal and they're idiots, so they want to stop Trump from doing this deal. ZTE is going to have to, it had to disassemble everything and now uses our mechanical engine, our chips. That's what it's all about. If you give China the right to put all their semiconductors and all their microchips and everything, and they put their mechanical engine on it, which controls it, and they put 5G in through Broadband and Qualcomm, Broadcom and Qualcomm merging, that's the end of America, folks. You think Trump didn't know that? You think he didn't walk him to the edge for a reason? Y'all are a bunch of friggin' idiots if you don't understand the genius deal maker we're dealing with here. So, Foxconn. Nice name, Foxconn. Does that sound Chinese to you? No, the real big names don't sound Chinese. So ZTE and Huawei and OLC and all those, no, forget it. This is Foxconn. And who are they going to be? Americans. And what kind of technology are they going to use? American technology. And if they upgrade it, they must put it through our patent office. And they must
Our
put it through
patent
us.
office is still corrupt and it's still
I
run
understand
by
that.
Serco. And I want to see some justice done to Leader Technologies. I am sick and tired of listening to these Silicon Valley boy kings running around wanting to control my free speech, living large, when they stole the patent from Leader Technologies through the IBM Eclipse Foundation and James P. Chandler. When are we going to see some justice for good, hardworking American entrepreneurs?
That is huge, and we need to get back on that stream and need to see if Michael McKibben's not busy so we can get him to keep pounding on this. I understand the research in Americans for Innovation and with him and Leader Technology and those geniuses still continues. We were just getting an update on that today. But what I'm saying is the war is with China, and we're winning it, and people are too stupid to know. And I can go back to the gold, you know, the fake Shanghai gold, and I can go back to their fake stock markets. I can go back to the fact that they off anybody who makes too much money. They just kill them. And they're in a war with Taiwan. And the leaders of Taiwan have said, please help us, please help us. Why do you think Trump and no other leader in the world has responded to Taiwan when they say we are under a full frontal attack by the communist Chinese?
And this is where Harley Davidson wants to move its operations?
Well, they'll go to Thailand and then they'll be eaten by China. That's the, you know, the Chinese they're everywhere in Hong Kong and Singapore and Shanghai and everywhere. They have spread everywhere. They had the money from us that they got from all the manufacturing, and they bought their way into the systems, and now they think that they can use totalitarian methods to leverage those systems. This is everywhere in the news, by the way, mainstream media and everywhere. You get in a deal with China. Later they say, okay, now you have to do us a favor. And you go, wait, no. This is a contract. We don't do favors. This isn't quid pro quo. What are you talking about? And they say, we're Chinese. You're going to do it our way. And that's the way that it is. Well, Trump just beat them. And as long as that plant goes forward, there's going to be many more plants, because now Taiwan, folks, is moving to America. And Taiwan is a tiny little friggin' island. And they do so much of our technology. They put most of the iPhones together. They put most of the phones together, folks. They put most of your screens together. They put most of your TVs together. They put most everything together that you are addicted to, that we are addicted to. And that is where we get our digital dopamine candy, and they are the leaders of it. So what's going to happen? You're going to also see the following, and this is going to be the big sign to you. How come no one mentions tariffs with Israel? How come nobody mentions trade with Israel? Here's what's going to happen. Intel is going to be moved from Israel to America, and we are not going to let their Talpiat and their Unit 8200 come with them. We're going to make it American. And sorry, Harley Davidson, if you don't want to be American, go be Thai. Go be Thai. See what that's like. And I want to say one more thing, and that's that what Trump is doing is working so well, because when the next Supreme Court judge passes away, we're going to see, because we already saw it, I saw MSN people hitting their heads over and over and pulling their hair. Their heads were exploding at the thought that Kennedy was resigning and Trump got to appoint conservative. And so what we're seeing here is that Trump derangement syndrome has now completely infected mainstream media. They don't know it because they have that other syndrome where they think they're smart and what's that one called? But
The
they,
Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yeah,
You're so stupid you don't even know you're stupid. But
that's what's going on.
As we wrap this up,
I just want to say, Trump, congratulations, and I'm sorry to have to tell people what you're really doing there, but they're too stupid, and I need to let them know they need to sit back and trust you. And if they're smart enough, they'll figure out what you're doing if they study hard enough.